You'll hear. Okay. So we've been discussing a shofar, talking about now some of the other miscellaneous halachot that are related to shofar. Yesterday we spoke about the berachah. We spoke about we can start. We spoke about kavanah, etc. So as follows: the time of the mitzvah is during the day. Okay, it's man mitzvah bayom. We spoke already why we would have thought that just like many other mitzvot, we say rizim maktimim b'mitzvot. We would have thought we would want to blow the shofar earlier in the day. Why? But we postpone it until Musaf. One reason for that is because there was a time of shmad, time of decrees, and we were not allowed to blow the shofar, and the enemy soldiers would come and check that we weren't blowing, so we postponed it to later in the day. So nowadays we blow the shofar at Musaf time. So right here, tiknu chamim letkor b'tzibur b'tfilat Musaf. We blow the shofar together in the tzibur, that's during Musaf. וכתבו הפוסקים, שגם מי שאינו יכול להתפלל עם הציבור, וממילא אינו יכול לתקוע בצמוד לברכות של מוסף, somebody who's davening not with the tzibur, davening alone for whatever reason, or without a minyan, and therefore their tkiyot are just tkiyot, they're not together with the brachot, because that's only in the chazarat hashatz. So in such a case, nonetheless, ראוי שיתקע אחר שיעברו 3 שעות ראשונות של היום, שאז הדין מתמתק. Okay, it's brought in the poskim that they should still wait until the first 3 halachic hours of the day have passed, because that is a time of harsher judgment, that is a time of din, and afterwards then to blow the shofar, that is a more auspicious time. As we've already mentioned, men are obligated in the mitzvah of shofar, women are exempt. The prevalent minhag nowadays is that many women do come to hear the shofar, but they are not obligated. Okay, we already discussed the question of brachot and who should say the berachah, etc. So we won't repeat that. So originally, nowadays we'll have machzorim and we'll have the words printed for us, but there was a time when the tefillah was done ba'al peh, it was done by heart. And at that time, Nagud, that's what we see in the poskim, Nagud akpid, shechazan hamusaf lo yitka et hatkiyot shebatoch hatfilah. So at that time, whoever was the chazan, the shlech tzibur for musaf, should not be the baal tokea. You know, there are places where you have some of these out-of-town communities, especially the rabbi is doing everything. You know, he's the rabbi, and he's the chazan, he's the baal korah, and he's the baal tokea, and he's the everything. So he can't be the baal tokea and the baal makra. That doesn't work, but he does one of them. But so it used to be that the chazan for musaf was not allowed to be the tokah as well. Why? Shema yitbalbel v'yitkasher lachzor letfilato. You know, he's davening, he's saying the words, and then he has to go and blow the shofar, and he's going to forget exactly which bracha. Nowadays, however, kayom shemitbalel mitoch machzor, en chosheshin sheitbalbel. Nowadays, we're not worried. You've got the machzor, you can find the place, and that's fine. Ve'efshar shachazan gam yitka b'shofar, and therefore, if you're in a community where the rabbi is also the chazan for Musaf and he's also the baal tokea, it's okay. You don't have to worry that he's allowed to do it. Ideally, we would have one baal tokea. That's the custom in many places. We don't want to divide the tkiyot amongst different people. One person performs all the tkiyot. Shematchil b'mitzvah omrim lo gmor. That is a principle we have in halakha. Somebody who starts the mitzvah, we say they should finish the mitzvah as well. This has implications in terms of who is the shlech tzibur and other things as well. But ideally, we want one person to be the baal tokea for the entire 100 blasts. Omnam, במקום שכבר נהגו לחלק את התקיעות לכמה אנשים, יכולים להמשיך במנהגם. Believe it or not, there are communities where people get, can get upset, and I want to blow the shofar, etc. And there are places where the minhag already exists, that it's split up between different people. One person does on one person. I'm not talking about one person on the first day and one person on the second day. That's fine. But sometimes you split it up. One person does the tkiyot mi'umad, one person does the tkiyot mi'ushav. If such a custom exists in a place, so he says you're allowed to continue with that minhag. Yesh b'zeh bitoy lechibuv mitzvah. The Mishnah Berurah writes, what is the advantage of that? That you're showing the mitzvah is very precious. Everybody wants to have a piece of it. Of course, everybody who hears the mitzvah is, as we've discussed, to hear the shofar. Everybody who hears the shofar fulfills the mitzvah. Whoever, if it's one person, one or two people, whatever. כיוון שהברכה שמברכים לפני תקיעות מיושב Chala gam al hatkiyot shebetfilat musaf. Okay, yeah, it gets a little bit complicated, a bit confusing, and it's interesting. We have, as we've already explained, we have the tkiyot miyushav, which is the first set of 30 that we blow before musaf, and then we have the main tkiyot, which are the tkiyot me'omad, which we blow together with the brachot of musaf, the brachot of the Amidah. Now, the Torah writes, and many of the Rishonim write, that the ikar tkiyot of Rosh Hashanah are really the second set, not the first set that we begin with, but really the main tkiyot of the second set. Why? Because that's together with the brachot. It's together with the brachot of Malchiot, Zichronot, and Shofar. It says in the Gemara, Masechet Rosh Hashanah, explains, it says, Kadosh Baruch Hu says on Rosh Hashanah, you should say before me Malchiot and say Zichronot and do it with the Shofar. That's the essence of the mitzvah of the day of Rosh Hashanah. So then the question was, okay, if that's the essence, why do we blow the shofar beforehand? Well, we explained already, the Gemara says, Kadei la'bevet hasatan, right, in order to not to confuse us, confuses us as well, but in order to confuse the satan, we explained what that means, won't repeat that. But now the question comes regarding the bracha, and it's very, very strange, because you would think, okay, so if the main tkiyot are the tkiyot me'umad that I'm saying with the brachot of musaf, so when should I say the bracha of the bracha of the mitzvah, b'shma kol shofar? Do it before I'm fulfilling the mitzvah in the ultimate fashion, which is before the brachot, the tkiyot me'umad. But we don't do that. We say the bracha before we have the tkiyot miyushav. Why do we do that? Because that's also, once we've now added on extra tkiyot, once we've added on an extra section of blowing the shofar, so that also becomes part of the mitzvah. Right, here as well every few minutes, right? But because that we're blowing the shofar, so we can't not say the bracha beforehand. Where else do we find this? We find this by Pesach as well. We find a number of expressions on this. The Gemara says on Pesach, let's say a person only has one vegetable, right? So generally speaking, we have one vegetable that we use for karpas. We have a different vegetable that we use for maror, the bitter herbs. Karpas, you can use any vegetable. So in theory, if a person only had lettuce, you would use the lettuce for karpas, and then later on you'd use the lettuce for maror. But then the question becomes, when do you say the bracha of alachilat maror? The Gemara discusses this, the Gemara Pesachim, and it says what? The person's going to Yamalek Kreso. He's going to fill up, he's going to eat all this, the maror, which he's eating for karpas, but he's already eaten it, and then he's going to say the bracha, but he's already eaten it before, so he has to say the bracha at the first instance, and then afterwards he can fulfill the mitzvah again. Or where else this comes up by Pesach as well is we spoke about this, the mitzvah of matzah, right? When you fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah on Leil HaSeder, so most people think it's when you eat the matzah, right, at the beginning of the meal. That is true according to some opinions, but there are opinions. Rashi says that why do we eat the afikoman at the end of the meal? He says that is the mitzvah of kazait matzah. So actually, and again, because afikoman and it was the korban pesach was eaten ala sofa, etc. So according to Rashi, you fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah at the end of the meal. So according to that, when should you say the bracha of alachilat matzah? You would think you would say it at the end before you eat the afikoman. And we say no, you can't do that because you're eating matzah beforehand when you start off and you start eating the meal. So therefore, you have to say the bracha before. So the same way here, before we start blowing the shofar, we have to say the bracha lishma kol shofar, even though, according to most opinions, the main fulfillment of the mitzvah is going to be later on. But what that therefore means is that when we say the bracha of lishma kol shofar, so that bracha is, we say that applies to all the tkiyot that you're going to hear. It applies to the tkiyot the miyushav, which you're going to say immediately, you're going to hear immediately after the bracha. It also applies to the tkiyot the me'omad. And therefore, one should not interrupt with speech. Obviously, you can say the words of the tefillah. That's what we're doing. But you can't speak, you can't interrupt with speech from the time that you've heard the bracha until the time that you've heard all of the tkiyot. Now, many of the poskim say that's the tkiyot miyushav and the tkiyot me'umad, but we have another 40 blasts which come right at the end of davening as well. So really, the bracha applies for all 100. And so ideally, a person should not interrupt in speech from the time of the bracha until you have heard all final 100 blasts. If there are extenuating circumstances, and there are reasons why, so again, after the first 60, meaning once we finish the tkiyot me'umad, there is more room. It's a little bit more lenient to be to interrupt. Really, if there's a very, very pressing need, so then once one's heard the first 30 one still has fulfilled the mitzvah at least. But definitely one should not interrupt between the bracha and the first 30 kolot, and ideally from the bracha until the tkiyot me'umad as well. Okay, so that's what he says. Yeah, he says, the bracha that we say applies really for all the tkiyot, so therefore one should not speak until one's heard all the tkiyot of tfilat musaf as well. Okay, another point we made mention to, very, very brief mention to this yesterday. Right, every tkiyah, one needs to hear their entire tkiyah from the beginning to end. If you did not hear, you came in halfway through the tkiyah and you only heard part of it, you have not fulfilled your obligation with that call. Therefore, you have to be very, very quiet throughout the tkiyot. If you need to cough or clear your throat, yitapek. You should wait. Ad siyum tkiyot, until the tkiyot are finished. The Mishnah Berurah actually here has a piece in which you see a little bit about educational philosophies and how they've changed throughout the ages. Mishnah Berurah says you have to be very careful about clearing your throat or coughing, or if you have children running around and making a noise. And the word he uses, I think, if I recall correctly, the word he uses is ya'ayem alayhim. You have to give them a fright. You have to make sure they understand. No, right now you cannot make noise. Right now you have to go out, etc. You also have this problem where often when in the shuls where you have chairs and you're getting up and people are dragging their chairs across the floor. So that's also, it sounds obvious, but it's not always obvious to people. And every time you're getting up for the tkiyot me'umad especially, so the Baal Tokeh should wait a few seconds till everybody's got a nap, and it's not because if somebody's dragging their chair across the floor and that's making a noise, you don't hear the beginning of the tkiyah and you've not fulfilled the mitzvah in that sense. Okay, למנהג אשכנז נוהגים להאריך בתקיעה האחרונה של סדר 30 ראשונות שתוקעים במיושב. The end of the 30 קולות, we have a longer תקיעה, וכן בתקיעה האחרונה של סדר 100 תקיעות. When we get to the end of the 100 תקיעות, also we have a longer תקיעה, what's called a תקיעה גדולה. This is it's called a תקיעה גדולה, והיא רומזת לאמונה גדולה עד אין סוף. And it's hinting at our great faith, which is continuing on eternally. למנהג הספרדים בסוף התפילה מראים עוד תרועה ארוכה. Right? The Sfaradim actually have a תרועה גדולה, which is goes on for a very long time as well, etc. And that is also a siman at the end of the set of tkiyot are finished. Okay, Rabbi Hanania ben Akash,